So low, nothing but so low. Hey
So
guys, welcome to We Got Balls.
you got some reverb on that in that big cavernous house you're renting.
I know, man. Look at this. See, I'm in town. So Scott and I are actually in town at the same time today. So I'm in Houston. Scott's in
Hi, Chris.
Houston. You're like, what, 10 minutes from me, basically?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're at the site of our intensive that's going to be going on this weekend. Four guys coming in town doing some really intensive work with both Scott and I. So, hey, if you want to know more about it, We Got Balls Intensive, check out wegotballspod.com and come and see us because we would love to host you here at a place, this wonderful palatial 7-bedroom place with a hot tub and custom food and all kinds of great stuff. It's going to be a lot of fun.
We're gonna have a good time. It's gonna be intense, but it's gonna be good intense. So
Intensive for sure. So, what's
and,
up,
and
everybody? Glad you're here.
AK-47 is already here, and he goes, "I'm trying to make all the live streams now when I can. I haven't missed an episode, but usually just listen when I'm driving. So good to connect with you. We're glad you're here, AK-40-7.
Awesome.
Welcome."
Good day, brother, says Michael Moody. Hello, says Millennium. And Millennium likes to point out that this is actually podcast 148. The last podcast is 147. We have two 146s. Thank you, Millennium, because I'm the one that does all the numbering, and I am terrible at math and ordering things. So I'll go back and revise those numbers. It's easy to do on YouTube, but I appreciate you pointing that out to us because, there's probably, 250 with all the lives we've done. We lost count a long time ago. What are we doing? So
We did, and I was looking at the analytics. So since we started the podcast in March of 2023, Chris,
that's correct.
we've almost reached 2 million guys. So
2 million views. Ooh,
yeah,
wow.
we need to get a few more in to get to 2 million, but the way you guys are sharing the good news, We Got Balls and the channel and enjoying it, we'll get there soon. So that's a big milestone for us, is to get
That's
to 2
awesome.
million.
Yeah. I mean, who would have thunk it? We were just two guys having a conversation on a phone and said, hey, let's put this on a podcast and see what happens. So
It wouldn't have been me that thunk it. So I thought we'd get 15 guys to watch.
we did. I think we got 200 listeners the very first episode, and then dropped down to about 40 after that.
Yeah.
So we pumped it up. So
And then we started talking about gay sex, and it exploded.
Boom. So. Well, that and penises and masturbation.
Well, that also helped.
Yeah, that's right. So Wiley Cody's here. He says, hey, guys, finally caught my first live stream. So glad you're here, Wiley Cody.
Glad 62. To have you.
So.
All right. We got a full house. We're at 56 already. Let's get going. We got a big singular subject today, Chris.
Yeah. We're doing a oneer today. That's all we've got is doing a oneer, because all it takes is one man, one dick, and one life. And you can be happy. So says some people. That's all it takes is just you and your penis, and that's all you need. I'm thinking back to that. You've seen the movie The Jerk long time ago with Steve Martin, right?
All I need is this chair. All I need is
this one penis, and I'll be happy my whole life, and you're never gonna take it from me. It's my favorite toy.
So I have a particular perspective on this topic on solo sexuality. So today we're going to talk about porn and masturbation, and how that is actually growing as a potential sexual orientation. And I think, Chris, it deserves to be honored in that way, since we come into the world actually masturbating in our mother's womb.
Oh, we do?
Yeah.
I thought I came into the world crying, but I guess I came into the world one hand down, one hand up.
Well, you had one hand in your mouth and you had one hand on your genitals in your mother's womb. And my feeling is that God has designed our bodies to provide soothing and care, both orally and genitally. And
you've been reading Freud, haven't you, Scott? You've been reading Sigmund Freud, haven't you?
Come on. It is how we're designed.
I'm going with it.
So, so we kind of start out our lives as human beings touching our penises if we're males, and that really takes off in puberty as your sex hormones explode. But I think kind of everybody's original orientation is solosexual. So this is our
Well,
original
I mean,
orientation.
I think it's worth exploring because we definitely are entering into a season of sexuality where there are more and more opportunities to be sexual by yourself. I
Yeah.
think that there was a long stretch of human history where the only accepted and appropriate way to be sexually active, to be orgasmic, to be stimulating was with a partner. And for the longest time, it was kind of put in the other extreme box, which is, the only way to have sex is laying down prone in missionary position and for procreative purposes only. So there was no fun, no excitement, no joy, all that stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah. And it wasn't too long ago that this was called self-abuse, right?
yeah,
So when you masturbated, you were abusing
yeah.
yourself. And
Well, for women, it was
cornflakes,
called hysteria.
hysteria. Um, cornflakes were invented to keep boys from masturbating.
That's right. That's right. You got it.
Just all kind of the nonsense that you think about it now, and you look back and you're like, that is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so everybody's got a story about masturbation. Isn't
Mm-hmm.
that
Yep.
interesting?
Yeah, I think so.
And that story is not just personal. It's not just what I've done with my body in terms of bringing myself sexual pleasure, but there's a family story about masturbation. There's a church or religious story about
Right.
masturbation. There's a cultural story about masturbation. So it's worth talking a little bit about spanking the monkey
Yeah.
or choking the chicken or, you know, wanking the one-eyed wobbly warhead. So whatever you
Wobbly warhound. You've never said that before in your life. You totally made that up. That's
just made
hilarious,
it up.
though. So I think when we get in this conversation, I think we have to acknowledge that maybe part of this whole dynamic has to do with the lack of true connection that exists in culture today, and that where maybe at a time in the past there was a lot more organic ways to be relationally, physically, maybe even sexually connected. Who knows, depending on religious and cultural dynamics. But it seems like there's a lot of siloing of culture. Like, I mean, for example, we're in the same city. We're 10 minutes apart. I'm on a computer, you're on a computer. We just compared our schedules for the next 24 hours or so. And we realized we don't have any time to get together and get a bite to eat.
Yes.
I mean, we're working at one time or another from now until tomorrow afternoon when the intensive starts. And so maybe this is a cultural thing, Scott. I mean, listen, I understand that we're hardwired to be masturbatory. That's just how we come into the world, according to some people. But maybe it's just that this is the best that I've got. I really don't have anything else in my life, and my best friend has been my dick, and so I just want to romance that, as much as I can. And we've talked about porn-induced erectile dysfunction. We've talked about all these other things. The way that I bond with myself seems the most intimate way that I've ever bonded with anybody.
Yeah, but that's not actually how masturbation works, because when you're ejaculating and having an orgasm by yourself, there's not really any other person there to bond with.
Sure.
So there's very little oxytocin, which is the bonding neurohormone released in masturbation compared to actually having sex with another person. So there's nothing to bond. There's not another body that you're bonding with. And there's not all that your brain's not going to release a lot of oxytocin just to bond with yourself. You can get that by putting surely you do get some oxytocin putting your hand on your penis. You get it when you put your hand on your chest, but it's not nearly as intense a bonding experience as if you're having a sexual experience with another human being. So I think I think there is some of the disconnection that's in the culture now that shows up in this practice of solo sexuality, just kind of guys checking out and going home and rubbing them out all the time to pornography. Because if you're a younger guy, the rates of having sex with another person are the lowest they've ever been since they've been tracked, since the
Mhm.
sexual revolution in the 70s or 60s. A lot of young people haven't even had their first sexual experience. And so those numbers of actually participating in partnered sexuality have gone down, 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 down. And it's easier, frankly, guys who are in the dating market, they're on Tinder, they're on whatever the other apps are really tired of the experience.
Yeah.
Because for the most part, if you're not in the 10%, you're not getting dates. You're not
Right.
getting selected. You're not getting chosen. So what's a guy to do if he's not in the top 10 best looking 6'2", category? Is he's kind of checking out. And I think young guys are very intimidated. They don't go to bars anymore because the Me Too thing has
Mhm.
kind of cooled off. I can't go up and approach a woman. So I think young men don't know how to approach somebody of the opposite sex. Not to just be heterosexual oriented here, but in this particular consideration, they don't know how to approach women, the younger dudes. And so, what are your options? I get to go home and choke one out while I'm watching pornography, and I don't have to take the risk anymore of being
But to
rejected.
your point, there's a story there. There's a story of this is how I first learned to be sexual. Is was in my room or with a friend, and I mean, there was a story from a recent event that I was at where a guy said, hey, I'm going to be over here in the living room. You go in the closet and watch from the closet, and we're going to watch this video. And they turned on a porn video. And so one guy was, doing his business where he couldn't be seen. The other guy was literally peeking out of a closet. And so there's that, and I forget who, Gene Fortner said, good topic, because we all also have sexual shame some of the time. And that there's, this idea of masturbation, as much as we want to normalize it and put it out in the culture and say this is good and okay, there's a sense in which in my body, maybe I'm feeling like I need to be sharing this with somebody else. And I've got this old story and I've got this current story, and they kind of collide. And why not just settle? Just be okay.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of other currents that go into this. If you've been sexually abused, like a lot of guys who listen to our podcast have been as a boy
Mm.
or a teenager, um, you may have some real problems with your body being touched by another person.
Ooh,
And
true.
so masturbation becomes a way for me to kind of assert autonomy and authority over my own body if I feel like I've been violated in my body. And you can do that, right? Unconsciously. You can unconsciously want to be expressing some kind of authority over your body because your body was used against you without your permission by somebody else. And this is one way that I can start to feel more powerful about my own agency is to masturbate, and that may or may not be a healthful thing to do. Depends on if you're married, what your spouse feels about that, how alone they feel in the relationship. You don't want to be neglecting connection with somebody that's in your life, but you can see how that could happen really easily to a person as well, and not realize that they're doing that. Like, why do you prefer? And the reason we got on this, right? There was an article about solo sexuality.
And
Let's kind of
pornosexuality. They
and
put the
porno
two
sexual.
together. Yeah.
So let's define what they said in the article, which is I prefer to masturbate or to masturbate to porn than I prefer to have sex with another person.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's a growing kind of cohort
Yep.
in the United States.
Yep.
And so therapists are seeing this. I've seen this before in guys that I've coached, like I would just rather jack off than have sex with my wife.
And or with part or another partner. I mean, that's I've seen it both heterosexual, homosexual genres. And it's not that these guys have a lack of experience sexually. Many of them have had a lot of experience sexually, and they've just kind of been around the block and they've tried to find anything that they could find. any person to connect with, whether it's short-term, hookups culture or longer-term relational dynamics, and nothing has stuck. And it's just easier to just, turn on your ideal stimulation and rub one out and go about your day. And that is the extent of your sexuality.
Yeah, because what is the risk of doing that? Like, I'm not going to get a disease.
Right.
Okay. I'm not going to become emotionally entangled with somebody that I don't really like or want an emotional entanglement with. I'm not going to be rejected. So I don't really have to take a lot of risk. But beware of um, low risk, high reward behaviors because they
Mm,
tend to be addictive. And it's just like anything else. If I don't have to do a lot of work to get that reward at the end of this activity, it's something that my brain's going to start to prefer over anything else because it doesn't require much of me. And I think that's where this ultimately goes is we start to condition ourselves to actually prefer being more and more isolated in a solo sexual activity than we would actually to take the risk that's inherent in having any kind of human interaction. And ultimately, Chris, that can't be good for anybody.
no.
Why not? Why not? Why is that not good? I'm just making a statement here, so back it up.
Yeah. Well, I think what you mentioned it's the least common denominator. It's the easiest form, and we as human beings. I mean, the number one rule of being a man, in my experience, is life is hard. Ha ha ha. Let's go ahead and do that little deal because people are gonna go, "Oh, my dick is hard." But
There's my
but the
sound effect.
reality is, life with challenges creates character. And it's so, in this day when we're addicted to comfort and we're addicted to ease and we've customized our life to be as pain-free as possible, to begin to engage in a relationship or to do the work of being relational really sucks. It just sucks because it's time consuming. It requires me to do a lot of effort. It involves me getting hurt and wounded. It does so many negative things. And so why not, for the argument that you were kind of talking about, why not just resort to taking care of myself and just cruising through life? And we're going to come back to this, but Mr. Chuck the Buck Norris says, I feel worse when I quit porn. Great comment, Mr. Chuck the Buck Norris. I love that username and the comment, because that is absolutely true. When you quit the thing that has been bringing you a sense of comfort and peace, and you got to go back to the world and engage real life and deal with real emotions and real relationships, initially you're going to feel worse. You're going to be like, what the fuck? Why did I do this? I'm going to go back to where it was easy and cool. And this stuff, I hate to go back to the stories, but this stuff started so early for many of us. I mean, 10, 11, 8, 9, 6, 7. You began to use porn to soothe the emotional and relational pain in your life.
I'll tell you what. I'm going to propose here that it starts even earlier than that because
Okay.
I think a solo sexual, truly an orientation that prefers to be sexual with myself starts as a little boy in my relationship with my mom because I'm not getting the attunement that I need from her.
Mm,
So I'm going to ground this in attunement, affect regulation, attachment, and the development of an authentic self. And that is what is lacking in so many guys' lives now is they were raised by a very disengaged mom and or dad or very in a very rigid, strict, lots of rules, regulations, but no relational warmth environment with their mother and father.
mhm.
And so they're not being seen. Nobody notices when your face has fallen. Nobody notices when you're sad. Nobody allows you to be expressing your anger. You're basically made to suppress a lot of emotion. And so, as a child, as a little child, you're not learning how to regulate your emotions. You're not learning in the presence of a mature adult how to regulate the ups and downs of your emotional states and to develop some degree of self-regulation capability. And the necessary element for that to happen, to develop regulation of your emotions, is attunement. You
Yep.
have to have parents that are paying attention to you. Not
Yep.
all the time, but at least
But good
30%.
enough. Good enough.
Good enough.
You said 30%. Sorry to interrupt.
30%. Yeah. So the definition of good enough attunement is 30% of the time your mom and or your dad is paying attention to you, reading your emotions, noting your emotional states, and regulating you out of intense anger or fear by soothing you, or stimulating you out of sadness and shame by making you feel more alive, or amplifying tenderness, care states, and play states by making those even more enjoyable with their presence with you. And so 30% of the time they're doing that, 70% of the time they're missing you or misattuning. And that's creating a rupture in your connection with them. And then they come and repair that. And that
Mm.
creates a necessary kind of resilience and adaptability within your autonomic nervous system to face the ups and downs of life outside of your family. So the family is meant to be a safe haven
Yep.
where you develop, right, the ability to be with, to belong, to understand who you are, to regulate your emotional states. And that prepares you to go out into the harsh realities of a world and not only survive, but thrive in it. But when you don't get that in your home, which a lot of people are not getting growing up
Mm.
these days, the and we call this the act of being attuned to and being regulated in your emotions, affect regulation is attachment. We call that attachment. That's what
Yep.
attachment is.
Yep.
I developed my ability to bond securely with my mother and father, or male and female, in that healthy, good enough parenting relationship. And when I have that, I develop a sense of being able to regulate my emotional states. I develop a secure way of navigating the world in relationship with other people. I feel good in relationship. I feel I can be connected. When we have disruptions, we can repair it and we can come back together. And I develop a sense of myself that I'm a good enough person. So
Mm.
good enough parenting creates a good enough self. And when I go out then in the world to seek a partner and to seek friends, I'm good enough at doing that too. And I
Yeah.
live kind of a flourishing life.
That's good.
Um, when
Nice
I
guy
don't get
Los
that,
Angeles says this really resonates with those of us who do not have loving, nurturing moms.
yep, yep, that's where it starts.
Yeah.
Your mother is your first love. Your mother is the foundational proto relationship for every other relationship you'll engage in your life. And what you see reflected on your mother's face, which is what we call mirroring in psychology, I see emotional states and I see connection in my mother when she's attuned to me. I begin to discover myself as I look in my mother's face. But if my mother's face is blank, or if it's unavailable, or if it's harsh, I'm not going to develop a secure sense of who I am and all these other aspects that we're talking about, the ability to regulate my emotion and attach securely. So, what do I do? What do I do when I feel big feelings that I can't manage on my own? I go to something outside of connection with other human beings to regulate. And it
Right.
just so happens I've got a beautiful piece of equipment hanging between my legs that creates a lot of sensory experience that feel really good. That's called my penis, and touching it is called masturbation. And therefore, I can learn to masturbate at a very early age to soothe or to pick myself up when I'm not feeling in the best sorts in my emotional life. And that's where
So,
this starts.
question: I've heard masturbation referred to as the universal drug. Would you call masturbation a drug?
I think that's a little pejorative.
Okay.
I think it is I think it is a foundational way to soothe and to regulate emotion, but I think when it becomes the only way, then it does become like a drug,
Okay.
because it's the so what is an addiction, Chris? Every addiction, a repetitive pattern of behavior or using an external substance or some kind of external behavior besides relationship to regulate my emotions. Every addiction is an attempt to regulate.
that
my
causes
emotions
negative consequences.
over
Addictions
time.
reach to the point of causing negative consequences over time. Yes.
Yeah, they start to cause my life to unravel and my relationships to unravel over
And I
time.
think that's where this conversation gets sticky because there's plenty of guys, and chime in the chat if you want
So
to.
to speak, sticky.
Yeah, that's sticky. Huh? There's plenty of guys who would say there are no negative consequences for me taking care of myself sexually. There's no
Well, okay,
negative consequences.
we just got a guy who commented, it's literally a yo-yo for me, no fap for a week and relapse when I'm feeling rejected. Well, so the problem is not the masturbation. The problem is I don't have a way to regulate my emotions other than masturbation.
Mm,
And so it creates this dependency on this one thing. And this one thing is the thing I do in isolation. And it turns out that isolation is the worst thing for a human being. I mean, think about it, Chris. Psychopaths in prison are punished by being put in solitary confinement.
yeah,
What? Why
that's
would you
not
punish a psycho? You would think that's a blessing to him, but it's not.
well.
It's just,
It's the idea I get to be solo when I want to be solo, and I get to be social when I want to be social. And the solitary confinement is you're solo all the time,
yeah.
just you and your thoughts and feelings, and that can lead to serious uh, dysfunction for sure. But their goal in doing it is to try to punish. So where's the middle ground of I can be with myself, I can be sexual by myself, but at the same time I can also connect in the ways I need to connect. I mean, I think that's when we get back to the hard questions. This is a hard topic because it requires me to be truly curious about what's going on in my relational life.
Yeah. And what has been most true about my relational life growing up? Because what's
Yep.
going on in your relational life right now is actually pointing you back to the past to be curious about where did I learn relationship? Where do we
Well,
learn
and
relationship?
and Troy Simpkins has got a lot of good comments. We'll get to some of them later, but here's one that he post. He says, "Our neighbor, who we're good friends with, told us his wife had cut off sex with him for a myriad of reasons. She caught him watching porn, and now she kicked him out of the house for cheating." We hear this story all the time. It's a very common story that we hear from guys. But what's going on in your relational life is not just about not having sex with your partner. It's not just about getting kicked out of the house for watching porn. It's about all the steps that led up to that. It's about all the formative dynamics relationally that you learned. And there's a bunch of them in your, and we use the term story, but it's your heart, your body that are still resonating.
Yeah. So how did I get in a relationship with a woman who would use sex as a weapon against me when I wasn't doing what she wanted or to
Mm,
punish me?
mm,
Right? How does that even happen? Because I learned that in a relationship somewhere.
mm,
I learned that that's normative for my relational dynamic experiences with intimate partners, that I am to be punished when I don't live up to what their expectations are. We don't have conversations about it. We don't repair the rupture. We just punish one another.
yeah.
And that's a relational dynamic that you learn somewhere. So again, whatever's going on now is a great roadmap in your life to go back to what was my relationship with my mother like? What was my relationship with my father like? How did I learn to use masturbation as a way to soothe myself and deal with my emotional dysregulation because I didn't have anybody that was looking for me in my family?
Mm.
Because I grew up feeling very, very alone. So a little boy who masturbates to soothe himself because he's actually alone in his family, nobody's paying attention to him, is going to grow up to be an adult that prefers masturbation to being partnered in sex with somebody, probably.
Can you say that one more time? I think the guys need to hear that again.
A little boy who learns as a boy that nobody's paying attention to him, nobody's there for him when he's got some big feelings going on to regulate him. And he learns to use touching his penis as a way to feel better and get out of those intensely negative emotional states, is probably going to grow up to be a man who uses masturbation to feel better about his emotional states too, instead of using relationship for his sexuality.
And that
So
is a hard, 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 difficult dynamic to break.
Yep.
Because, like Scott said, you grew up that way.
And it may sound ironic because, we're helping guys with um, not just healing from their complex trauma, but also the addictive patterns that they've developed. And one of those common addictive patterns is compulsive sexuality in some degree. Usually with guys, it's compulsive sexuality. A lot of the times with women, it's shutdown sexuality. So it's not surprising this guy's wife cut him off, because that's how women deal with their emotional problems, is they get very pull back, withdraw type of thing. So, but guys are using their body to regulate, and so you got to be curious about, well, when did that start? What was my relational dynamics like? How did I learn to use masturbation? When do I first remember masturbating, touching my penis? And um, why was a boy of 5 masturbating so regularly? Right? Because that's a clue.
Yeah, I mean, that's pre-orgasmic, and that's definitely self-soothing rather than using, dopamine to regulate your emotions. I mean, there is some dopamine there, but not nearly as much as you would get in an orgasm. So, yeah, something to be
But
curious about.
when we're helping guys with this, we're not shaming that behavior that
Right.
you use to survive as a child, because you needed your emotions regulated somehow, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't honor and respect how you as a boy found this brilliant way with your own body to survive the lack of emotional regulation and connection in your family system, you're not going to be able to leave it
Mm-hmm.
behind. So you got to kind of respect it. And then, but notice that what that behavior is inviting you to is to actually get emotional regulation in a very connected way with another human being. So that's how you start leaving that. You don't just flip a switch and go, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to go meditate, or I'm going to do something. Not no, you're
That's
not.
not going to work. Yeah.
That's not going to work very well.
Yeah.
You're going to slowly wean yourself off of this as you become more connected with others, which is why we always say the opposite of any addiction is connection,
Mm.
not sobriety. So connection comes before sobriety, Chris.
It does. It does. Andrew Life Blurbs says masturbation isn't the issue for me. Porn is. I use masturbation differently if I do it without porn.
That's interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. That's what I do with certain guys when they're compulsively masturbating, is I invite them to try out being curious about what's going on around the times that they masturbate. That I invite them to do without porn sometimes. I invite them to give themselves a schedule for masturbating.
Yeah.
Be like, hey, what if you do it at this frequency, and see what happens, and see what comes up. And there's some guys that they're open to it and they're receptive to the invitation. And there's some guys it's kind of like, oh, I did that, I'm done with it, I'm moving back to what works for me, because there's a very strong bond with that behavior and the environment around that behavior that does self-medicate, self-regulate my emotional world.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah, I do that too. I'll invite guys to even I call it mindfully masturbate, because when you use masturbation to emotionally regulate, you're typically doing it on autopilot. So once the emotional state that you're trying to avoid, let's say you learned early in your family that anger was not allowed in your
mm-hmm.
home. You are not going to be angry, young. You're not talking back to me, young man.
Mm.
You're going to respect me. You just sit there and be quiet and take it. So I'm
Ooh,
not allowed to feel anger,
yikes.
right? Because I can only regulate the emotions I'm allowed to feel growing up. So if I'm not allowed to feel anger, and I have something happen to me as an adult, I can't help but feel anger, but I'm not supposed to feel that, right? I shouldn't be feeling angry. So
Mm.
what I learn over time to do is dissociate from the anger, and I go to something else, and that something else is horniness.
Mm-hmm.
So every time I'm angry, instead of feeling angry, I feel horny.
Mm.
And I go do that. I go masturbate. and it's automatic. I don't even think about it. The minute I get angry, I'm horny and I want to masturbate.
So that's where horniness comes from. It's not actual sexual arousal. It's a stimulus response based upon other emotional triggers, right?
Well, it can be, yes. If it's
I mean,
you get,
that's the way it's been for most guys that I've known. I mean, the random acts of horniness is much more rare than those emotional connected dynamics that you're just describing.
it's a lot. It's a lack of emotional awareness, and then the emotion itself becomes an avoidant behavior.
Mhm.
Like, I'm going to avoid that feeling, and the way I learn to avoid it is masturbate and orgasm. And so my brain pairs those things together, neurons that fire together, wire together. So I dissociate from the initial emotion and I go to horniness, because sexual arousal is an emotion. But I go to horniness instead, because every time I get angry, my nervous system goes, "Oh, we're angry. Now is the time we masturbate." And that becomes an automatic pattern of behavior, because once that's ingrained in me as a habit, I don't have to think about doing that. I'll feel horny the minute I'm angry and not realize I'm angry.
Mm,
So, right, I go to the behavior, and it's mindless. So it's unintentional and it's automatic. Now, if you're going to change that, you have to first of all see that that's what you're doing.
yeah,
So when do you find yourself getting horny? What situations cause you to be horny? Is it when your wife yells at you? Because that's not something you typically get horny about.
yeah. Another one is
Unless
tired. Another one is late at night. That gets wired together pretty quickly. Yeah.
bored,
Yep. Bored. Yep.
stressed,
Right.
lonely. There's all these states that we tend to want to avoid, emotional states, and then we pair them with sexual arousal, and that's how this kind of gets started as
Yeah.
boys. So once that pattern is there, it's mindless, it's automatic. I'm on autopilot, and if the emotion gets triggered in me, I don't feel the emotion. I feel horny. So what do I do to get out of this situation? I have to start to pay attention to my emotions. What causes me intense emotion? What causes me to be angry? What causes me to be sad? What causes me to feel lonely? When do I see that showing up? And then I need to do a better job of connecting with somebody else when I'm feeling those feelings, so they can help me feel them, because I need another person to mirror emotions to me if I'm
Mm.
detached from it.
Time out. I need another person to mirror emotions to me. So if I'm stuck in my emotional desert and don't have someone to attune with me or mirror emotions to me, then I'm just going to continue to do the thing that's worked for me to help me regulate my emotions, which is self soothe via masturbation. And everything gets internalized and buried in, and the loop continues. The loop of self sufficiency, the loop of self satisfaction continues. And
Yeah.
that is entrenched so deeply, I think, in so many of our lives. In fact, there's a guy, Wiley Cody. We're really semi solo. I think we engage with a partner, and then sometimes there's some solo play. There's a middle ground. Wiley Cody, what we're saying is be curious about those solo times to find out what's really going on in your story and your history and what's how you developed sexually, but also what's going on in your current relational life. Very clearly, we are not saying never masturbate. If you will listen to our masturbation episode, we do not take a position on the morality of masturbation. But we do invite you to be curious when it's showing up for you, especially when it's showing up for you a lot.
Yeah, I don't think masturbation is a moral issue
Yeah.
unless you're doing it in public.
Yeah,
And
that's a
you're gonna
moral issue. That's a moral
then
issue.
it's a
Let's
legal
let's, let's
issue.
take a let's take a firm stand on that, Scott. No public masturbation. We're not going to
Yeah,
encourage.
we would not recommend that.
Or with or
But
with or with non-consenting partners. I would also say that. Please.
also true. Or children, or horses, or
Yeah, they're
whatever. But
non-consenting because they're children. So,
um however, it is an emotional regulation issue. I think
mhm.
that's kind of the issue. Not always. Sometimes you can. So the request or the invitation to mindfully masturbate is, like you were talking about, schedule it. So instead of just masturbating every time I feel unfelt feelings or don't want to feel unfelt feelings, I do it on a Saturday night, and I make it an occasion, and I
Mhm.
enjoy it, and I prolong it, and I enjoy what it feels like in my body. But I'm being mindful because I'm present with my body in the experience of masturbating. I'm not detaching through porn. I'm not detaching through fantasy, because that's a great way to be disembodied from the experience.
Mhm.
So I pay attention to the sensations in my body and what does it feel like? I, explore. And then I take my time and I'm not rushing to do anything. That could be a very useful way to wean yourself off the choke it out in 2 minutes and get it done because you don't want to feel that feeling thing.
Yeah.
So,
What is that?
um,
What kind of masturbation is that? That's kind of like the binge version of masturbation. I'm just going to stuff my face for a few minutes till I feel better, and then I'm done.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um,
There's so many
Rebel,
good comments in
yeah.
the
Let's get to some of the comments. So, like, I was looking at Rebel Pete Urso says, by the way, I've been in a relationship for almost 21 years. I have no issue with others touching my body. I think it's more about not getting what I need from others, and only I know how to get me off. Well, okay, Pete, but here's what I'd invite you to. Relational sex is intended to be an interactive experience. And you're not necessarily going to be in the position to know what pleases your partner, or what your partner to know what pleases you, unless you talk about it. And so part of the interactive experience is, no, can I show you, here's how I like to be touched? Could you show me how you like to be touched? That's actually an invitation to more connection, not less connection. Like I
Mm,
think we have these false ideas as men that I need to know exactly how to please a woman or touch this person there or that, blah, 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 blah. That's ridiculous. We're human beings. We need to have conversations about, what do you like? What do you not like? Could you show me how to do that? I'm really curious about that. Could I show you what I like? So I think there's an invitation there to greater connectivity, not,
yeah.
well, I'm the only one that can take care of me.
Well, here's an even deeper issue from Dude in Rocks. Is sometimes it's not that people don't notice; they don't care. Then solo sexual play is the only thing that feels good. So when you've been hurt, when you've been wounded, when you've tried to engage relationally and you've been shut down or suppressed, I mean, I get it, Dude in Rock. I mean, that's a tough place to be in. But the challenge is, are you going to retreat and separate yourself and soothe yourself? Or are you going to go say, is there another way for me to engage relationally that maybe I haven't learned yet?
Yeah. Troy Simpkins says, as a boy who grew up to be a gay man, I had hardly any emotional engagement from my extremely rigid Christian father growing up. Well, okay, so no emotional engagement, but you did get
Well,
emotional engagement. It was negative emotion.
hold on. There's more to Troy's story. Both of my parents just basically engaged with me when they were telling me all the shortcomings I had as a Christian and how I should be doing more to follow Jesus. They were super followers of that bullshit from Bill Gothard's Institute and Basic Life Principles that the Duggars were so interested in. So that gives a
Oh,
story, a context to all this.
yeah, and knowing the Bill Gothard stuff and what happened in the Duggards family, you can see the trajectory of that kind of teaching. It's very destructive.
Yeah.
And dude, so sorry that you had that. And just curious about, then do you find yourself using sexual encounters when you're in high emotional states and wanting to regulate? I would
Mm.
think that's probably a big thing in your life, is that you find yourself to be very sexual or very aroused, uh, without realizing there are emotions going on that need to be engaged. And our premise is not to avoid sexuality, but to say, maybe at that particular moment, what you need is legitimate human connection that regulates your emotions, rather than trying to avoid it through a sexual experience, which we so often do. Not saying you do, but many
Right.
of us do.
Michael Moody threw a Bible verse on the chat. It's not good for
What?
man to be alone. What are you doing, Michael? You throwing out some scripture verses. I feel like I'm at church or some shit, you know?
Well, so from an interpersonal neurobiological standpoint, Dan Siegel says there is neither me nor you. There is we. That the
Okay.
human mind, right? The human mind is a product of what goes on in my body. And you actually have four brains. You have a gut brain, you have a heart brain, you have a right brain and a left brain. So you got four brains. So what goes on in my body my forebrains, and my interaction with others. That is what forms my mind. Because there is a sense in which it's true to say, I don't have a mind without you, Chris. And
Mm,
I'll go back to the statement I said earlier is you need another human to mirror emotions. If you have a hard time feeling emotions, which a lot of guys do, you grow up in these disengaged or rigid family systems, you're going to have a hard time feeling your feelings.
mhm,
The thing you need most is not another orgasm. The thing you need most is another man to mirror your emotions to you as he
mm,
listens to your stories. So, like, for example, in this story that Troy just told, if he was telling that to us, we might get tears in our eyes. We might be able to feel what that felt
yes.
like to be a little boy growing up in a really rigid, oppressive, never can be good enough Christian family.
Mm,
And what that does to not only your sense of self, but your desire to be connected to God, your desire to be connected to others. And to reflect back to you, I felt that the sinking feeling in my stomach as you talked about Bill Gothard and the Duggars and the just I know what that's like. And I can imagine what that had to be like for you not really feeling seen. Well, when I mirror emotion to Troy that he may not yet be able to feel, I'm teaching him how to feel with my
mm,
face, with my body. And that's what's going to give him real repair of his nervous system
yep.
and invite him to feeling feelings, not another orgasm. Because the orgasm is just another bypass from emotion. It can be. So we all need one another because you can't mirror emotions to yourself.
No. And that is why we were meant to live in relationship. That's why that verse is in the Bible. It's not good for man to be alone. It's not good for human beings to be alone. And it has nothing to do with marriage or anything. It has everything to do with
Yep,
connection.
that's right.
Yeah. So
You're created to live in relationship with other people. You're created to be in dyadic
well,
relationships,
you're
you and
created to
me.
live in a relationship with yourself, with other human beings, and the universe around you.
Yep.
All three of those things. So shout outs for the
And
guys who made their first um, live. Wiley Coyote, Ron Von Bloomberg is just joining us first live, and TJ Patek. And also, and I can't read it because I don't speak French, but Je suis dans un Quebec. I probably butchered the hell out of that, but welcome. He was putting a lot of chats, and he eventually started commenting in English. So I'm glad you could be with us. So
so we've got a great comment here. I hear this a lot too. This is, I think, one gay guy here. My husband has a porn addiction and I think prefers masturbation over real sex. He's been seeing a therapist, not because I made him. He wanted to. Good for you. And try to break out of the cycle. I hear that a lot from gay married men that, the after um, the initial stage of infatuation in the relationship wears off, which is around 24 months. And this happens to heterosexual couples too. You guys have to be willing to invest in the relationship by doing novel things with each other.
mm,
And a lot of gay men will open up the relationship to sex with other guys. My suggestion would be bring in novelty, but not by bringing in other people. Go do something that's fun somewhere else, which is why vacation sex is always better. But we can all get lazy in our relationships, but it's good to actually invite your partner back into the relationship by saying, "Hey, this feels very disconnecting to me. I'm sure it's got to feel very lonely and disconnecting to you. Like, what's not going on in the relationship that you want?
yeah,
What are you looking for?"
yeah,
So have a conversation about and do that together.
yeah. RMC had a comment. After many years of looking for the right guy and too many hookups, I chose to pause and seek connection before the bed, especially if it felt like it was coming from a selfish place of simply getting off. Thanks for sharing that part of your journey, RMC.
Yep. Greg Ellis is asking the question about prostate health as we age,
Yeah, we've
which
we've
is
covered that in previous episodes. Yeah, 21
what
times a month, right?
21 times of ejaculating a month. So rub them out a couple of times. Let's see. You have any questions, Chris?
I think we can talk about this. I think I want to come back and talk about porno sexuality more than solo sexuality, because I think there's something in the emerging AI culture, and the way that life works out, that really is going to be an important conversation. Because, like I said before, I swore off AI and said it wasn't legit. And at a retreat I was at this weekend, I had a guy that said, "I promise you, AI porn is legit." And I was like, "Okay, I want to know how you know that, but it's out there." So this focusing on connection with artificial people, artificial images, artificial experiences is very important. By the way, we can say thank you to our friend Troy. He is all over it, because he is giving us a super chat. We won't do the horn at the end here. So thank you for your super sticker. Peer character stretching his arm forward and raising his thumb up. So I don't know what that means, but he's thumbs up in us. So Scott, exciting weekend, like I said, coming ahead of us. We'll let you guys know next week. We also have an exciting guest next week. We're going to do isn't it bromance part 2? Kind of, is that the idea?
Oh yeah, you guys, bromance part 2 is coming on Wednesday, so you will get to meet one of my other bromances. So you met Andre, so you're going to get to meet the famous Luke Williams here next week, live and in person. So I can't wait for that. That'll be a fun episode.
It'd be sweet. So
So
thumbs up the
if you guys are,
episode. Give us a smash that like button to promote this to YouTube. And welcome, Toby Lehman. First time live to here. Hey guys, we're glad you're here. Come back every Wednesday at noon Central for these conversations. Check us out at wegotballspod.com if you want to connect personally. And we look forward to inviting you into a deeper connection with yourself right here on We Got Balls.
and you do too. Have a good week, guys. We'll see you next Wednesday with Bromance Part 2.
See ya.